Hello everybody, this is Denise Barrett. I am a realtor and land broker here in North Texas, and you have landed on The Real Deal. Today we're going to talk a little bit about what I am looking for when I am looking for land for you. These are some really important characteristics. We've got a number of other videos talking about land, its uses, its exemptions, and so forth. But here we're going to be talking about some characteristics that you need to have in the back of your mind when you are looking for land. This is beyond what you're going to be using it for. This is characteristics of the lot itself. So one of the first things that I want to know when I'm looking at a piece of property is how much of it, or is any of it, in a floodplain. Now, just because land is in a floodplain, which means there's a river or a lake or some body of water which can flood on it, it's not necessarily a bad thing. There are applications of land where floodplain really doesn't hurt you at all. In fact, it can help you. If you're using a property for hunting, right, then that water is really important for the wildlife that's on it. It is even helpful for some crop applications. So don't shy away from land if it is a part of a floodplain, or a part of it is. The only place where it really comes into play for you is if you're going to be building on it. Then of course you don't want any structures to be in a floodplain, but that doesn't mean you can't enjoy the land. So that's what I'm going to be looking at. There's the FEMA flood map, which is available to everyone. You can indicate what piece of land that you're looking at, and that map will tell you whether or not that property exists in a floodplain. So there's a handy dandy resource that both you and I can use. The second thing that I'm going to be taking a look at is, well, the dirt, right? The composition of the dirt. How much of it is clay? How much of it is sand? Whether it's been improved for crops or not. Now, if you're not going to be using it for crops, if you're using it for recreational purposes, then you may not even care. But if you're going to be building on it, you are going to care. Soils that are heavy in clay tend to swell and shrink with the weather, and that is really rough on foundations. Land that has a heavy sand composition can easily erode away, which can again affect your foundation. So depending on what you're going to be using the land for, that could have a varying range of importance. But it is something that I'm taking a look at. The other thing that I want to take a look at for you is easements and mineral rights. Now here in Texas, mineral rights are kind of a very separate animal, and they are separate from the property, which means you can own a piece of property and not own the mineral rights. If you really, really, really want to know who does, then you hire what's called a landman, and they do the back researching to find out who owns the mineral rights. That's important to know, because at any point the owner of the mineral rights may have the right to collect or store or extract minerals from the property. Now, on the easements, what do I mean by that? That is an encumbrance on the property. That is a characteristic of the property which allows someone else to enter the property for a designated purpose. For example, let's say you have electrical lines above your property, or you have gas lines or cable, or any number of utilities just under the dirt, usually toward the road. The utility company has an easement, which means they have the right to inspect their property there, right? Their lines and their whatever it is that they're taking out of it. So it's not a bad thing, but you just need to know who they are and who may have access to your property. It may be important, it may not be important, but it's my job to make sure that you know so that you can make that decision. One more thing that I'm going to be taking a look at, and I ran across this really recently. Accessibility. What do I mean by that? How do you get to your land? Is it from a highway? Is it from a farm to market road? Is it a county road? Is it a dirt road, gravel road? What is it? Here's why it's important. If, let's say, you have a property that is in a 100-year floodplain, and the access to that property is in that 100-year floodplain, there is a possibility that your access to your land can be restricted. Why? Because it's flooded and you have to wait for it to dry out. So again, that is something to think about. If you intend to be on that property all day, every day, then you need to be able to get there. If it's a recreational property or a hunting property, then again, it may not be a big deal, but you need to have your plan going into it. Now, this last topic is something that we talked about in some previous videos when we're talking about land, and that's the tax valuation. How is it being taxed? You can take a look at that. I can take a look at that because that is public record. You can find that out in the county tax office. You simply look up the property and it will tell you how it's being valuated, whether it has an agricultural valuation or not. The reason why you want to know is because that agricultural exemption, which again is not an exemption, it's just a change in the valuation, can reduce your tax burden by thousands of dollars. Now, undeveloped land, generally speaking, has a much lower tax rate than, let's say, residential lots. But if you can get an exemption on it, it's even less. So that's something to think about too. What I want you to know, if when I'm your broker and I am looking at land for you, are these things. You tell me what's important to you, I find out the answers, and you then determine whether this beautiful piece of property is something that you want to buy. I hope these tips were helpful to you, at least a starting point, so that you know what it is that you're looking for when you're looking for land. So if you have any questions or want to just drop me a line, just put it in the comment section below. I'll be more than happy to reach out to you to help you find the land that you're looking for. In the meantime, you have a great rest of your day. Oh, Leia's going to make me say this. Like and subscribe. And I'll talk to you next week. Thanks a bunch. Bye-bye.